I recently faced my worst nightmare. I came home to find a woman screaming at my Jeep like it was hers, jabbing her finger and yelling, "That's my daughter's car!" My hands were full of mail, my heart racing, trying to make sense of what was happening. Neighbors were stepping out of their homes, staring in disbelief as her voice echoed down the street. Before I could respond, she pulled out her phone, shouting that she was calling the police because I had stolen her daughter's car. Within minutes, flashing lights appeared at the end of my driveway. I stayed calm, holding my registration and title in hand, but inside, the tension was boiling. Everyone thought this was just another petty dispute, but they had no idea I wasn't alone. Someone very powerful was on my side, and she was about to find out exactly who. What happened next changed everything on this quiet street, and it all unfolded faster than anyone could have imagined. It started like any other afternoon, quiet, warm, with the hum of sprinklers and the faint buzz of cicadas hanging in the air. I'd just gotten back from the grocery store, keys jingling in one hand, a bag of produce in the other. My Jeep sat exactly where I'd left it that morning, parked neatly in my own driveway. At least, that's what I thought, until I saw her. A woman stood in front of my Jeep, red-faced, phone in hand, shouting as if she'd just caught a thief in the act. Her hair was pulled back so tight it looked painful, and her sunglasses glared like tiny mirrors. "That's my daughter's car," she screamed, pointing with trembling fury. "You think you can just steal from us and park it here like nothing happened?" For a second, I actually laughed, the kind of awkward, disbelieving laugh that slips out when your brain can't process what's happening. "Ma'am," I said, setting down my bags, "this is my car. You must be mistaken." "Mistaken?" she shot back. "Don't you play dumb with me. I know what you did. My daughter's Jeep was stolen last week. Red, same tires, same scratches." "This is hers!" Her voice carried across the neighborhood like a siren. A few doors down, curtains fluttered. Mr. and Mrs. Hanley paused their gardening to watch. Even the mailman slowed down. It was surreal, like I'd been dropped into a bad reality show. I took a breath, tried to stay calm. "Look, I've had this Jeep for 3 years. I've got the title, the registration." "Save it!" she barked. "I already called the police. They'll sort this out." And just like that, the sound of sirens rose in the distance. 2 patrol cars pulled up a minute later, lights flashing across the tidy lawns. The younger officer stepped out first, barely out of academy by the looks of him. Behind him came Sergeant Briggs, a man I actually recognized. He'd been on the force for over 20 years, calm, steady, the kind of guy who didn't jump to conclusions. "Afternoon," Briggs greeted. "We got a report of a stolen vehicle?" Karen, I didn't know her name yet, but she screamed Karen from a mile away, immediately took charge. "Yes, officer. That man stole my daughter's Jeep. It's right there. I have photos, I have proof." Her hands fluttered like she was conducting an orchestra of outrage. Briggs turned to me, eyes narrowing just slightly. "Sir, you the owner of this vehicle?" "Yes, sir," I said, keeping my tone even. "Got the paperwork right here." I reached into my glove compartment and handed him the registration, insurance, and a copy of the title. He glanced over them, his brow relaxing as soon as he saw my name printed across all 3. The younger officer, meanwhile, was trying to get Karen to calm down. That wasn't going well. He forged that. "You think criminals don't print fake documents now?" she yelled, pacing. "I'm on the HOA board, officer. I know the people who live here." "He doesn't belong." There it was, the HOA power trip. The badge she wore wasn't official, but she wielded it like a sword. Briggs exhaled, then gestured to the VIN on the Jeep's dashboard. He compared it against my paperwork. "Ma'am, the VIN matches." "This vehicle's registered to Mr. Carter, has been for years." Karen blinked, stunned for a beat, then recovered fast. No, that's not right. He must have swapped plates. This is a setup." "You don't understand, my daughter." Behind her, a teenage girl sat in their SUV, staring at the ground, face bright red. She clearly wanted to disappear. "Mom, it's not the same car," she muttered weakly. Ours had a dent on the back bumper. "Quiet, Ashley!" Karen snapped. "You don't know what you're saying." That one word, quiet, landed heavier than she meant it to. It said everything about who she was, the kind of person who'd rather rewrite reality than admit she was wrong. The situation should have ended right there. But of course it didn't. Karen refused to leave. She started accusing me of intimidation, claiming I'd threatened her. She called me a bully, a faker, even suggested I'd bribe the officers, all while the neighbors recorded on their phones. Briggs tried reasoning with her. "Ma'am, if you keep interfering, we'll have to ask you to step back." "Oh, please," she spat. "You think you can scare me? I run this neighborhood. You don't know who you're dealing with." I finally turned toward her, keeping my voice low but firm. "Actually, Karen, I think you're the one who doesn't know who you're dealing with." She glared, arms crossed, mouth curled in a smug little grin. "And who are you exactly?" Before I could answer, Briggs's radio crackled. He stepped aside to respond, but Karen was still glaring, trying to figure me out. That's when a black sedan turned slowly onto the street. It wasn't just any car. It had tinted windows, government plates, and that subtle, intimidating presence you can feel before you even know what it means. The vehicle stopped right behind the patrol cars. The back door opened, and out stepped a woman in a dark suit, sunglasses in hand, flashing a badge that caught the sunlight like a spark. "State Attorney's Office," she said, her voice calm, cutting through the tension like glass. "What's going on here?" Karen froze. Briggs straightened instantly. "Ma'am, we're handling a reported vehicle dispute. Appears unfounded." But the attorney raised a hand, her eyes settling on me, and then softening. "Mr. Carter," she said with a small nod. "You called this in?" "Not exactly," I said quietly. "But I had a feeling I'd need your help today." The air shifted. Karen looked between us, confusion and panic flickering across her face. Wait a minute," she stammered. "You know her?" "Yeah," I said, finally letting a small smile show. "Let's just say I have a few friends who don't take kindly to false accusations." The attorney turned toward Karen, her professional smile gone. "Ma'am, why don't we step aside and have a conversation about your claims, under oath?" The look on Karen's face said it all. For the first time that afternoon, she had nothing left to say. As the scene quieted and neighbors pretended not to eavesdrop, I looked at my Jeep, still sitting exactly where it belonged. Calm had finally returned, but I knew this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Because in neighborhoods like this, people like Karen don't quit. They regroup. And as the black sedan door shut and the attorney turned to me with that knowing look, I realized this was only the beginning of something much bigger than a parking dispute. The air felt heavier than it should have, the kind of quiet where everyone's pretending to mind their business, but every curtain on the street is pulled back just enough to watch. Karen stood frozen in my driveway, lips parted, eyes darting between me and the woman from the state attorney's office. Her confidence was slipping fast like a mask melting in the heat. "This is absurd," she finally snapped, gesturing wildly. "He's lying. You're all falling for some elaborate scam." The attorney didn't even flinch. "Ma'am," she said evenly, "we've received multiple complaints about your conduct through official HOA correspondence, including attempts to fine homeowners for infractions that don't exist in the bylaws." "Does that sound familiar?" Karen's face flushed pink, then red. That's not true. Those fines were legitimate. I was following community standards." Behind her, her daughter shifted uncomfortably, tugging at the sleeve of her hoodie. "Mom," she whispered, "just stop, please." Karen ignored her. I stayed quiet, arms crossed, just watching it all unfold. After years of dealing with people who thought they were untouchable, I'd learned one thing. Silence was sometimes the loudest weapon in the room. The attorney stepped closer, her tone calm but firm. "Mrs. Stewart, do you deny sending homeowners letters threatening property seizure? Or the one ordering residents not to speak to the county inspector without your written consent?" I was maintaining order," Karen stammered. "This community needs structure. Rules, discipline. If I didn't step in, this place would fall apart." "You mean it would stop revolving around you?" I said quietly. Her head snapped toward me like I'd slapped her. "Don't you dare speak to me that way. You think you can embarrass me in front of my neighbors?" Her voice cracked on that last word. Neighbors. Like it suddenly hit her that every single one of them was watching from their driveways. Phones out, faces half hidden but smirking. Mr. Hanley across the street muttered something to his wife. 2 teenagers recorded from their bikes. Even the mailman had parked his truck and was pretending to sort envelopes just to stay close enough to listen. The attorney held up a hand, redirecting focus. "Mrs. Stewart, this isn't about embarrassment. This is about misuse of authority. If you continue issuing fake citations or tampering with private property, you'll be facing criminal charges. Karen's jaw trembled, but she refused to back down. You can't threaten me. I have connections. I've spoken with the mayor's office personally. The attorney blinked once, then tilted her head slightly. That's interesting, because I am the mayor's counsel. That did it. The color drained from Karen's face entirely. Her daughter looked up, tears welling in her eyes. Mom, please, just apologize. But Karen shook her head violently. No, you don't understand. They're turning everyone against me. Her voice was high now, shrill, cracking with panic. I've worked for years to make this community safe, and this is how they repay me? By humiliating me in my own neighborhood? The attorney didn't respond right away. She just stood there, perfectly composed, the way only someone who dealt with dozens of public meltdowns before could. Finally, she spoke softly. Mrs. Stewart? This isn't about humiliation. It's about accountability. You crossed a line. Karen looked around, searching for someone, anyone, to back her up. But all she found were quiet faces and shaking heads. Then her eyes landed on me again. You did this, she hissed. You think you're so clever? You planted this whole thing. You've been plotting against me since the day you moved in. I didn't raise my voice. No, Karen, you did this to yourself. I just stopped pretending not to notice. The younger officer, the one who'd been silent the whole time, stepped forward awkwardly. Ma'am, I think it's best if you come with us for now. We need to clear the street. Karen spun toward him, wild-eyed. Don't you dare touch me. I'm the HOA president. You have no idea who I am. The irony was painful, because in that moment, everyone did know exactly who she was. Her daughter finally broke. She stepped forward, voice trembling. Mom, please. They're right. You've gone too far. You're not helping anyone anymore, and you're just hurting people. Karen froze, her expression softening just a fraction. Sweetheart, no. I was doing this for you. For us, the girl shook her head. No, you were doing it for control. That silence, that one raw, truthful silence, was louder than all of Karen's screaming. Her hands dropped to her sides. Her breath hitched. For a moment, she looked almost human, small, tired, lost. But it didn't last. Because as soon as the attorney gestured for the officers to escort her aside, Karen's pride snapped back like a whip. You'll regret this, she shrieked. All of you. You'll see what happens when you cross me. Her daughter turned away, crying, and I just stood there, arms still folded, waiting for the inevitable. The attorney leaned toward me quietly. You handled that well. I've seen worse, I said, half smiling. Used to be a prosecutor. Learned a long time ago that people like her always talk themselves into deeper holes. She nodded, glancing at the growing crowd. You realize this is probably going viral already. Good, I said simply. Let people see what power without empathy looks like. Across the driveway, Karen was now pacing behind the patrol car, still shouting. You're all going to regret this. I own this neighborhood. I'll sue every one of you. But no one was listening anymore. Neighbors were dispersing, muttering to each other, some even clapping softly before heading back inside. The once feared HOA queen had finally lost her crown and her audience. The attorney walked toward her car, shaking her head. I'll file an injunction. You shouldn't have to deal with her again. Appreciate it, I said, though I have a feeling she's not done. She glanced back over her sunglasses. People like that rarely are. As the patrol cars pulled away and the last of the onlookers faded, I noticed someone still standing at the end of the block, tall, silent. Arms crossed, watching. Karen's husband. He hadn't said a word the entire time, and not when his wife screamed, not when she was escorted off, not even when his daughter broke down crying. He just stared at me. Not angry, not sympathetic, just calculating. And in that moment, I knew this wasn't over, because behind every loud Karen, there's always someone quieter, and sometimes that's the one you should really be worried about. The days that followed the driveway showdown felt like a strange mix of relief and disbelief. For the first time in weeks, the neighborhood was quiet. No shouting, no HOA inspection notes taped to doors, no Karen standing in the middle of the street with her arms crossed like she owned the place. But that peace didn't last long. It started subtly, an envelope in my mailbox with the HOA logo stamped on top. Inside was a notice claiming I owed $500 for unauthorized vehicle modifications. The only modification I'd made was waxing my Jeep. I almost laughed. But the letter wasn't signed by any actual board member, and I'd seen enough of Karen's handiwork to recognize her brand of pettiness. By the next afternoon, 2 more letters appeared, one threatening a lien on my home, another warning that continued non-compliance may result in court action. That was when I realized Karen wasn't finished. She was regrouping, and this time, her husband was stepping into the spotlight. Mr. Stewart, Howard, had always been quiet, the type to hover behind his wife and nod like an echo. But when he showed up that evening, walking across my yard in a pressed polo and fake confidence, I could tell he'd convinced himself he was the real power behind the throne. "You've embarrassed my wife," he started, voice dripping with condescension. "This whole neighborhood knows your trouble. But I can make this go away if you just apologize publicly." I leaned against the Jeep, arms crossed. "Apologize? For owning my car?" He waved one of the fake HOA letters like it was a royal decree. "You're in violation of community standards. We're fining you for defamation and non-compliance." That was the moment I pulled out my phone and pressed play. The dashcam footage from the driveway incident filled the air. Karen screaming, the officers arriving, the state attorney introducing himself. Howard froze, his jaw tightening as his wife's shrill voice echoed through the neighborhood again. "You really want to keep playing this game?" I asked. "Because I've got hours of this footage, and all your little letters have already been sent to the real HOA office and the county clerk." He tried to step closer, lowering his voice. "You don't know who you're dealing with?" "Oh, I do," I said evenly. "And so does the attorney you met the other day. He's expecting your call." Right on cue, a black SUV rolled up beside the curb. The same attorney, flanked by 2 officers, stepped out. Howard's confidence evaporated. "Mr. Stewart," the attorney began, holding up a folder, "we've received multiple complaints about fraudulent HOA documentation and harassment. These letters you've been distributing, did you sign them?" Howard hesitated, then tried to laugh it off. "Just neighborhood communication. Nothing official," the attorney didn't smile. "Forging HOA seals and distributing legal threats under false pretenses is fraud. It's also harassment under state statute." The younger officer stepped forward. "Sir, we're going to need you to come with us." From the window, I saw Karen's face appear, pale and trembling. Her daughter, Emily, stood behind her, tears streaking down her cheeks. When the handcuffs clicked, the sound cut through the street like a verdict. "Dad?" Emily's voice cracked. "What's happening?" Howard turned toward her, trying to muster authority, but the words never came. The officers guided him into the SUV, and for once, the Stewart's front yard was silent. I walked over to Emily slowly, careful not to make her feel cornered. She looked up at me, eyes red. "I'm sorry about my mom. And my dad. They said you were trying to take our house." I shook my head gently. "No, Emily. I just wanted them to stop hurting people." "Nobody's trying to take anything from you." She nodded, wiping her face. "They don't listen to anyone." "I know," I said quietly. "But maybe now they'll have to." Over the next few weeks, the neighborhood transformed. Real HOA representatives held a meeting. Turns out, Karen and Howard had been issuing fake fines and using the board as a personal weapon for years. Homeowners who had been too afraid to speak up finally did. One by one, they came forward with stories: harassment, intimidation, threats over paint colors and mailboxes. The Stewart's house went dark. Eventually, a for sale sign appeared on the lawn, sun-faded and crooked. Nobody seemed sad to see it. When the legal dust settled, Karen pled guilty to multiple counts of harassment and fraud. Howard faced forgery charges but took a plea deal. The daughter went to live with relatives out of state. A few weeks later, as I washed my Jeep, I heard footsteps behind me. Emily stood at the edge of the driveway, holding a small envelope. "They said you should have this," she said, handing it to me. Inside was a brief note from her. "Thank you for standing up. I'm sorry for everything they did." I smiled, folding the letter carefully. "You didn't have to apologize, kid. You didn't do anything wrong," she nodded. "You did, though. You stood up when no one else would." As she walked away, I looked down the quiet street. The air felt lighter. No more threats, no more fake fines, just the hum of sprinklers and the smell of fresh-cut grass. Justice hadn't come fast, and it hadn't come clean. But it had come. In the end, it wasn't just about a car or an argument in a driveway. It was about drawing a line between control and integrity, between fear and truth. And as I locked up my Jeep that night, I couldn't help but think, sometimes, the quiet ones who follow the rules are the most untouchable of all.